All right, so today we're going deep on something that I think a lot of our listeners are really interested in,
Hmm.
which is how families and relationships are being taught in Year 4 classrooms.
Yeah.
We've got some pretty interesting source material here that looks specifically at respect, boundaries, and support.
Right.
And joining us to kind of break this all down is our expert in educational materials and child development.
Oh, hello.
So I guess maybe just starting off, one of the things that kind of jumped out at me looking at this material was some of the terminology.
Okay.
I mean, you've got words like bystander stereotype, even bereavement.
Yeah.
These aren't exactly, playground lingo.
Well, you're right. And I think it really marks a shift from some of the simpler concepts you might expect.
Mm.
I think especially the inclusion of bereavement, I think it acknowledges that children, even at this age, experience loss.
Right.
And they need support, to navigate those complex emotions.
Yeah, and it kind of makes me wonder, too, is it also about preparing them to support classmates who are going through something similar?
Yeah, that's a really great point. I think teaching children about these difficult topics, kind of equips them to be more empathetic and supportive friends.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of support, another thing that really stood out to me was the emphasis on acts of kindness.
Okay.
But it's not just about, being nice, is it?
No, exactly. I think the source material really goes beyond that kind of surface level niceness.
Hmm.
It really delves into the why behind these actions, connecting them to building empathy, fostering a sense of community.
Okay.
There's even an exercise where students, they track their acts of kindness
Right.
and reflect on the impact they had.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it's a really insightful way to make the concept tangible.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
It's not just about doing good, but understanding the ripple effect
Right.
of those actions.
Yeah.
Now, on a slightly different note, there's also a lot of focus on authority in these materials.
Yes.
But it's not as simple as just obeying adults.
No, it's not.
The materials really emphasize respecting teachers and figures of authority,
Mm-hmm.
while also stressing the importance of personal boundaries.
Yes.
That phrase, "your body belongs to you," really jumped out at me.
It's a powerful message,
It is.
but I can imagine it being tricky to navigate, for a 9-year-old.
Oh, absolutely.
How do they reconcile respecting authority with asserting those boundaries?
Right. How do you balance that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's where I think the practical application comes in.
Okay.
The materials include these scenarios where children are actually encouraged to identify situations that makes them feel uncomfortable and to practice, saying no.
Wow.
So it's about equipping them with the tools to handle potentially, difficult situations.
So it's not just about knowing the rules.
Right.
It's about understanding how to apply them in real life.
Exactly. And that leads really nicely into another key theme,
Okay.
which is challenging gender stereotypes.
Right. The materials point out how these stereotypes can limit opportunities for both boys and girls.
Yeah.
But how do you convey that message to a Year 4 student?
Well, one way they do it is through analyzing stories and media.
Okay.
Children are encouraged to identify stereotypes and discuss their potential impact.
Interesting.
So it's about raising awareness and encouraging them to think critically about the messages that they're receiving.
So it's about giving them the tools to question those norms
Yeah,
rather than just accepting them blindly.
precisely. And finally, I was really pleased to see the inclusion of Childline as a resource.
Yes, having a concrete resource like that seems so important,
Absolutely.
especially when you're discussing these sensitive topics like boundaries and, difficult emotions.
Right. It sends such a clear message that it's okay to ask for help.
Yeah.
And that support is available. And it's not just for kids.
Oh, that's a good point.
Adults can also use Childline to get advice on how to support children, who might be struggling.
That's really valuable.
Yeah.
So it seems like Year 4 isn't just about times tables and spelling tests anymore.
Yeah.
It's about equipping these young minds with the tools to build healthy relationships
Yeah.
and navigate these complex social situations.
It really is. And it raises, I think, a bigger question for all of us.
Okay.
How can we take these concepts beyond the classroom and apply them to our own lives?
That's a good question.
How can we create environments that are truly respectful, supportive, and empowering?
Yeah, for everyone, not just children.
Exactly.
That's definitely a question worth pondering and perhaps one we can delve into a little bit further
Yeah.
in a future deep dive. But for now,
Okay.
Thank you for joining us on this exploration of families and relationships in the Year 4 curriculum.
It's been a pleasure.
We hope you found it as insightful as we did.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
Take care.
You too.